Hey everyone, today we're solving the Decode Ways problem on LeetCode. We're given a message containing letters A to Z that are encoded as follows. A goes to 1, B goes to 2, through Z going to 26. Given a non-empty string containing only digits, determine the total number of ways to decode it. So here's an example. If they're given 12, we can decode that 2 ways, and here's the 2. We could do AB, where we take the 1 to mean A and the 2 to mean B, and we have that decoding, AB. Or we can just take the 12 here and interpret that as an L, and that will come out as L, okay? 226, there are 3 ways to decode that. So you could take the 2 to mean B, and then the 26 to mean Z, leaving you with BZ. You could take the 22, you could take the first 2 numbers here to mean 22 for V, and then the last would be 6. Or you could take them each individually, so B, B, F for 226. Okay, so here's the way we'll solve this. Here's the original method that you're given. Num decoding is just given a string, and I just overloaded that method with another method called num decodings. Takes the string S but also an index 0. Okay, 0 is just a starting index, it's an index into the string. And here's how the new method works. Okay, so it's a recursive function. So if the index into the string is greater or equal to S length minus 1. So what does this block right here mean? This block means that we have a string, we are either of length 0 or length 1, okay? If the index is greater than s dot length, that means that the string is of length 0. And how many ways are there to decode a string of length 0? Just one. There's just one way to decode a string of length 0. It's just nothing. It's just empty. Okay. Else, what does this block mean? This block means we have a string of length 1. Okay, so in a string, if a string is of length 1, well, if the character at that index is equal to 0, we return 0. Now, why do we do that? Because in our mapping here, A starts at 1, okay, and then it goes through 26. So 0 has no equivalent character. So if we're given a string and it just contains 0, then there's 0 ways to decode that because we have no idea of how to decode 0. Else, meaning we have a string of length 1 and it's not a 0, then there's just, for a string of length 1, there's only one way to decode that. It'd be whatever the mapping is over here. So down here, if we have a string that's greater than length 1, well, we check to see if the character at the index into the string is 0. If it is, we return 0 again, and again the reason is we can't have leading zeros because we have no way of determining what 0 is over here. We start at 1, 0 doesn't mean anything. So if the character at the index is 0, then we return 0, there's no way to decode it. Now we've memoized this, okay? We've got a memo up here for some dynamic programming, so if we see something that we've already seen. So if we've already seen this index into the string, we just return that answer because we've already seen it. If we haven't done here, we'll compute it. And this is sort of the recursive function. This is how it works, okay? So the number of ways to decode this string is, well, we have to make a decision. And there's 2 possible scenarios, okay? So let's take a look at 226 here. And let's say index is 0. Say index is pointing at this first 2 here. Well, we have 2 options, right? We can either take that 2 to mean 2, meaning it's a B, okay? Being this 2 right here. We have 2 choices to make. We can either take that 2 as a 2, and it means B, and then there will just be the number of ways to decode the rest of the string, 26. Or we take both these 2's to mean V, 22, okay? And then the number of ways to decode the rest of the string is just the number of ways to decode 6, okay? So at each index, we have to make a decision. Do we just take the first character? And if we do, then the number of ways to decode it are just the number of ways to decode the remaining string from that index plus 1, or we take both, okay? But there's one rule, is in order for us to take both, for us to take two numbers, index and index plus 1, then that number has to be less than or equal to 26, okay? Because 26 is as high as this goes, so it's the highest number in our encoding. So let's say like the numbers were, 3 and 4. Well, we couldn't, let's say the first digit's a 3, the second's a 4. Well, in that case, we could only decode the 3 because we couldn't do 34 because there isn't a 34 here. Okay, so that's the decision we have to make. At each index, we look at that index and the next number. And if that is less than or equal to 26, then we have two ways that we could decode it. We could take that first number and then decode the rest of the string, or we could take the next two numbers and then decode the string after that. Okay? So here's how we make the decision right here. So it's in a ternary form. So if the integer represented from index to index plus 1 is less than or equal to 26, then the number of ways to decode that string are the number of decodings of s index plus 1. Okay, that's where we just take 1. That's where we just take the first number, and then we decode the rest of the string, plus the number of ways to decode s from 2 past the index, where we take the next two. Okay. If it's greater than 26, then we can only take the index. We can only interpret the character at the index. So the number of ways to decode, or just the number of ways to decode from index plus 1. Once we compute the answer, we just put it in our memo to make sure we don't recompute it, and we return the answer. Alright, so it works. So that's it for this one. So again, at each index, and it's a little confusing, you think about the recursive one, but really, understand what's going on right here, and you'll understand the problem, really. At each index, we say, okay, we have two options. Either take this character on its own and decode the remainder of the string from index plus 1, or take index plus 1 and index, and that will be a number, and then decode the rest of the string from index plus 2. And the way you decide if you can do that or not is if the number represented by index and index plus 1 is less or equal to 26, then you can do it.